We lived up 25, 26 miles west of here on Owl Creek. We, Mom and Dad, Joe, myself and Jim, and old Mick Dog, we moved over to there the 1st of March in 1946 in an old 35 Ford pickup. The whole damn works, and they had all of their belongings on that old pickup. And I remember being the first trip through Wind River Canyon that I ever made, and I still remember it. But anyway, it was a 339 acres that at that time Dad bought for $13,000. It was a nice irrigated place, and in the 40s.
If you could steal enough water.
Yeah, right.
I want a jury trial.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of that. But we raised hay and had a bunch of cows and sold extra hay to the neighbors. And
Small grain.
yeah, usually a patch of oats or barley or both. And we was on Owl Creek, which comes down through where Troy lives now and stuff. But
We was
also,
on the South Fork of Owl Creek.
yeah, South Fork of Owl Creek.
The North Fork, South Fork dumped together about 5 miles below where we live. And that's dumps in where Troy lives now. The two creeks. And after that it was an Owl Creek. So
But Dad had quite a haying crew. Back in them days, I remember the first couple of years when we was there, we had a team of horses, Bird and Queen, and we used them to pull the old overshot stacker up with. And that was always the youngest kid's job. And Dad took old Model A cars and he would turn the gears around in it to where they run backwards, and he'd put a buck rake head on the front of it. And he built one winter, and Joe run it bucking hay when he was 8, maybe 9 years old.
How old were you guys when you moved up there?
I was 6 and Joe was
9.
he turned 9 that May, and we was there the first
And
time.
Jim was 3.
Jim was 3. Yeah. And anyway,
or
we
yeah.
The next year, he built another buck rake, and Joe and I each run one. Can you imagine an 8 and 10-year-old kid driving Model A cars out across the hayfield? Woo! Oh shit! We run into a ditch and broke the tooth out. Caught hell from our dad. But Jim, he was over running the team, pulling up the old.
No, I didn't ever run a team.
Did
Joe
you?
did
Oh,
that.
you started on that old tractor.
Yeah. No,
old
the new
left.
tractor.
Huh?
I got to drive the new tractor on the stacker.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Well, you forgot.
I was 8 years old.
You was spoiled.
Still is.
But we also had a bunch of, Dad kept all 3 of us boys busy with a bunch of milk cows.
Oh, God.
Usually 10 to 13 of them. And we did it this way. We didn't slap them.
We was glad when we were going to be 6 years old so
No.
she could milk a
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah.
If you could imagine how much milk 7-year-old kids get out of it.
But I got, when I was 7, I could fill a bucket pretty fast.
Oh, you were always the best milker.
Yeah,
Milker, I
but
guess.
Jim could fill buckets pretty fast too. And Joe, he didn't give a
He
damn
hated
about
milk.
the
Choice we have.
But Joe didn't care a lot about the farm stuff. He'd run tractors and stuff, but as soon as Joe got old enough, well, he found him a job which turned into his lifetime job, being an electrician for the Hot Springs REA. And
Lineman
yeah,
has a
he-
difference.
Yeah.
yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
He's not an electrician. He was a lineman for the REA. Electrician is the guy that comes in and got all the smarts that wires your house, fixes your.
Yeah.
But he
The
could
other
do
guys were lying.
he could crawl up a 40-foot pole faster than you could ever imagine. He was the old
There's
time
something he
lineman,
could do.
you know. And he liked to do it. The heights didn't bother him, you know. He'd run up that damn pole, put his belt around him, and do whatever he had to do. And
2 or 3
come back
steps
down.
down.
Yeah.
And we, Red Creek was just south of us, and when Dad didn't have us busy in the hayfield, well, the fishing was better in Red Creek than it was in Owl Creek.
There just wasn't
And-
any in Owl Creek.
yeah.
Big old suckers.
And,
Yeah.
and we would go over there, the Red Creek Ranch, they let us fish there as 3 kids, and we'd ride our horses over there, and Joe was everybody thought he was a grouchy old bugger. Joe was very generous. Joe, we'd go fishing, and he was the best fisherman between Jim and I, and he'd say, well, you can have that hole, and Jim can have, and he says, oh, and he'd still outfish. He'd take the hole that wouldn't produce the fish as much, but he was generous enough that he'd let Jim and I catch out the good holes, and he'd go catch more fish out of the sorry holes. that we'd go on the ranch there, and then we'd crawl through the fence that had a big sign that said, Indian reservation, no trespassing, keep your ass out. And
That's where the best fishing was.
that's where
Everybody
Fish
else
didn't read
stayed out.
signs.
at that time, it wasn't catch and release, it was catch and eat. We ate, you know, every time
Whatever we could catch.
yes, and we didn't grow up, we didn't ever know we was poor, but, you know,
We was pretty goddamn well off compared to the neighbors.
yeah.
Oh,
a lot
Most of
of-
absolutely.
the, outside of the bigger ranchers around, but the sharecroppers, the little farmers,
And the guys
that had little places
they didn't
like
even
our,
have indoor plumbing and
our
stuff.
folks was very frugal, they were very efficient, and we eat better and drove newer cars than I ever did. But, yeah, they,
No,
They
I
was
always
pretty
said
down.
we grew up poor, but not.
yeah,
We didn't. We were money poor, but we always had more dairy products, more
Yeah.
meat on the table, pork, beef, any of that. Because we butchered, we milked our own cattle, cows, and fed out those calves and sold those calves every year off those milk cows.
yeah.
And
Besides the milk cows, we had about 50 to 75 beef cows.
yeah,
And you know, back in that time, from late 40s through the 1950s, you could make a living on 330 acres. You know, you could, but you know, you can't do that anymore.
but our dad was pretty efficient. But he bought an old combine. The neighbors around, they didn't have a combine. Our dad would go out and combine, custom combine for neighbors for their small grain and done stuff like that. But also, we was thoroughly involved. You had
hired help.
yeah, hired help. But
And Joe was.
But we
a lot of
still
help
lived
on
and
that.
eat better than most.
Yeah.
Most of the sharecroppers around.
Belly fall down. Belly fall
But
down.
it was a good life, and Joe was a hell of a good brother. He kept Jim and I lined out. God damn. If we went smoking behind the schoolhouse during the dance, well, if he didn't go and tell the folks, well, he'd hold us over our head till we waste the Christ he'd have told us.
I was on a kid in the 4th grade, smoked steady.
But he's through and through. He was a good brother, you know. I know that he
We was
he
hateful little
appeared to a
buggers
lot of
to him.
people as to being a grumpy old fart, but he was a generous grumpy old fart. He did. He would. Well, after, I don't know whether you know it or not, but for 3 or 4 years, Joe was a pretty bad alcoholic. He had to shake real
Tremors.
bad, and he went to a quack doctor that says, you know, I had that, and I learned if you drank some tequila, that would help that. So Joe would get up in the morning and drink his tequila, and yeah, it calmed him down.
There,
And,
I don't know.
but he got to where
That's what Bob knows.
at 4 o'clock in the evening, he started drinking, and it was whiskey and water, and he would literally drink until he staggered into bed. And Kelly knows all about it. When he broke his arm up there, that's what got him over that. And I was always proud of him. That he,
Yeah.
as bad as he had that habit, he could kick it, and he could still go and have one drink every evening, and then he always had his own sippy cup, or he liked to live, that he'd mix his drink in it, and then he used to go and fill her up with whiskey and water, and he'd do that until he, well, fall down the stairs going to bed.
Break his arm. Yeah.
But it was kind of, our Troyer family, it was kind of, that way our uncles, several of them,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, our Uncle Bert,
Uncle
his,
John.
I don't know how many years, but when his feet hit the floor in the morning, why, that's when he had a little nipple.
It's
And
always
it
a
went
bottle
on.
under the seat.
Even in the coffee bar, I heard Doug.
But there was 3 of our mother's brothers that were alcoholics.
I remember Uncle Bert having that bottle under
And
his
there
seat.
was a brother-in-law
And
in there that was
it's
now-
no
locked you up in
bullshit
jail
that it
and all
runs
that.
in families. I can't tell you why or where, but it does.
But
We see it here and right here, our friends and neighbors, over the years
Yeah.
here, and I could turn into one in overnight.
Yep.
Did Joe stay at home all the way through high school, or did he move out?
Pretty much, yeah. That was another thing when he got the job with the REA. Well, when we grew up, well, we had literally a log cabin. There was a kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom here, and a bedroom here. And there was kind of a utility room that before Viva come along, our dad put running water in it, and they split the utility room, and we had a bathroom there. But our dad was a working fool. He dug a 6-foot ditch from the well over to the house, which was probably 150 feet. He dug a sewer drainage ditch 3.5 foot deep for 400 yards to the creek, and he did it this way, and he filled it in this way, and he did every damn bit of it himself. And
Now he had Clark helping that one summer.
did he? But
Yeah, I can remember it.
the
Run across them big old goddamn cottonwood trees and have roots like that, and they was in there, my dad or cousin Forrest Floyd,
Oh,
yeah.
and they were in there with an axe cutting them goddamn roots out so
Yeah, I
they could
forgot
dig
that he
ditch.
helped with that.
Anyways, yeah, we didn't. I don't know. I was
But
7
back to
years
this-
old where we
the
had
story was
running water.
when the one bedroom back there was us 3 boys, and when we found out we was getting an addition, well, Mom says, you know, we got to do something. So Dad went and built a 12 by 18 bunkhouse for us 3 boys, and it was a pretty decent building, and had a heater in it. and he'd give us hell for just going outside the door to pee, but we, when Joe got out of high school and he went and worked for the REA, well, he thought he wasn't getting enough sleep in the bunkhouse.
Well, we would bug him. He was working nights. That was on when he was working Anchor Dam.
Anchor
Oh,
Dam.
that's right. Yeah, he was working Anchor Dam, right?
Built Anchor Dam, and
Yeah.
he was working night shift, and he
So-
couldn't. Hell, we
So-
bugged him half the time. He was trying to sleep in the bunkhouse. And
So
he
got,
went up and came out of the
Yeah.
old barn and took some hay bales and built himself
Built
a
himself a
8-foot
little
square room
Yeah,
there
yeah.
and throwed his bed in there so we didn't bug him during the daytime.
Yeah.
Which he was
But he-
pretty damn smart there.
yeah, it was the summertime, but he moved in the hay mound.
I remember going up there and playing in his bedroom.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
too.
yours probably,
There's always an
Yeah.
old barn
Yeah.
cat that had
Yeah, you'd have been
cat
getting old
kittens in
enough to-
there. So
But you guys were, those damn boys, they keeping me up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we was
I
kind of,
could tell.
you know, like
We would.
all people, you know, we probably wasn't the nicest to get along with. You know? Somebody's working nights, so run in there and, hey Joe, let's do this. Get out of here, I want to sleep.
Okay, so tell me where this originated from. When I would get sick in grade school, and you'd come in and say, "Are you sick or are you Joe sick?" Tell us where that came from.
Okay,
Where did that come from?
he could fake sickness pretty good. He
Our mom could tell pretty much, so.
yeah.
Your mom was pretty
So
shrewd. Yeah.
we got to, if somebody was sick, well, then are you sick or are you Joe sick?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
You
that
better
was
have
being
a
into my
fever
head
if
as a
you're
little
sick.
kid. Are you really sick or are you Joe sick?
So my dad told me when the bunkhouse was built, the three of them were messing around one night, and Grandma come out and says, "If I hear another peep out of you guys, I'm gonna whip your ass." And he goes, "Peep!"
And they all go.
You know, our dad had a hell of a bark to him, and he would come by the bunkhouse in the morning, going out to the barn to get started to get the cows in and feed everything, and if you didn't get out of there in 10 minutes or so, well, he would holler again, and about the third or fourth day of us not getting up there, well, my God, he'd boil in that bunkhouse and he would talk more than anything. He'd drag us out of the. But in all my life, I only remember one spanking
From Dad.
from Dad. Yeah, Mom used to swat her ass, but when Dad did it, I'd been riding an old Smoky through the Alkali Bog along the road. Now I don't know what the hell. I was probably 8 years old, and Dad come by. He'd come back from irrigating, and he stopped and he come over. And he paddled my ass, and he says, "I hope you know what that's for." And what he did, he warmed my ass good. And it took me a little bit to figure out what I'd done, but I never rode on Smoky through the bog again. But we always had horses to ride. And,
I ran a buck rake off in that bog one day.
yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
I had, first time they let me drive it down the county road, go from the house down to the
Hayfield.
lower field, and goddamn, man, I was hauling ass. 15 miles an hour in that damn old buck rake. It steered from the back end.
Yeah, you know when you turn around.
Oh.
They
The
steer-
steering axle was on behind you, and that front brake head was out in front of you, and hell, you just got away from me and down in the goddamn bug. And
Well,
along old Roy Schaefer come along, he had a four-wheel drive. He was a county You sprayed weeds for the county out of four-wheel drive power wagon, and he drug my buck right back out of the mud.
That must
No.
have been the old thing I drove.
Did you cover your tracks?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jim
but the
was
old-
Gotta hide that.
never
Yeah,
speeding,
that was the
no.
first one he ever built.
Yeah.
That second one he built that Joe got to run, that was a running old bugger. He could weigh out. We'd take off from here to go across 300 yards across the field, and hell, he'd beat me by 200 or 300 feet.
It was geared different or something. But then he went, I don't know, he went and bought an 8-in Ford tractor and put a buck rake on the front of it and hit it out buck two
Two
of them
Model
old
A's,
Model
yeah,
A's.
so kind of cut out our fun.
It was a tractor, it wasn't a car.
But I always thought, you know, hell, we'd put up 300 or 400 ton of hay. But how in the hell Dad did that was that hay and crew he had, you know, from 6 to 10 years old.
And,
But
his,
we all
and of course
worked.
it was loose hay stacks.
Yeah,
and-
it was
And
loose
he
hay.
took great pride in building a good neat
Yeah,
hay
Dad,
stack. He never
Dad
had a
would
low
be on
hay.
the stack of stacking it with.
They were,
But we
he'd
had that
stand
old
up on
overshot
top of that
stacker
with a
that
pitchfork and build that damn hay stack.
anybody's got any questions of what we did when we was little outlaws, we'll do it.
Bob, when you had all those milk cows, did you guys sell milk and cream, or did you
We
use
sold
them?
cream.
cream.
We shipped the cream to Swift in Denver.
We ran a
If we wasn't
separator
going to
every
town,
night and morning.
We would take the cream out to the mailbox and give that guy a quarter, and he would take it to the railroad and send it on to. But
Sometimes though, Mom and Vicky and I went to town on Saturdays and took the cream cans right to the
Yeah,
depot.
yeah, if we
And
going-
we'd have to pick,
if you
and
was
we'd have
going
to
to
pick
town,
up the empty
if there was a
cans.
can of cream, you took it with you, and you went
picked
by the
up empty
depot and
cans.
picked up your empties.
Then came back.
That
Yeah,
you mentioned going to town. Well, quite often Saturday afternoons was town time, and us kids would get 25 or 30 cents, and we could go to the movies. Mom and Dad would go do the stopping that they had to do, and Mom and Dad both worked their ass off, but they both liked to drink a little bit. And
But not a lot.
I remember,
Few times.
yeah,
Seen our
not,
dad pretty
not very
goddamn
often,
drunk,
but
but not a lot.
I remember one time when Joe was 14 years old, and it was, usually we headed out of town by 4:30 so we could get all the milk cows done. And it was after 5:30 or so, and Dad and Mom both was so loaded when they come out of Max's bar that Joe was 14 years old and he drove us home. But they wasn't very many times like that. Judy, her and Shirley both used to come up there with their folks when we was on the trip there. Always had company in the summertime.
Oh.
Wasn't there an accident with Jim about you ran over him and hurt his face?
Joe ran him over with the disc.
With the disc when you was a kid. Yeah,
It's in my baby book. My mom wrote about it. You
Yeah?
ever read about it?
yeah.
Joe was,
But I got one on top of my head
Joe
too.
was 12
I'm
and you
shorter
were
too,
6,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you went to pull through the gate, didn't you?
No.
I just fell off.
we
We just
was
broke
fell off
the
the
clutch
back.
and I
We
fell
was
off the
breaking
back.
sod with the disc, and Joe had the old F-20 tractor, and it had a little platform down where the drawbar come out that you could stand on, or an extra
A
kid
kid could
stand
sit on it.
And Joe was running that. Jim was on the platform, and I was running an old H tractor, pulling a disc, and we was going around and around. And I think Joe shifted gears.
Well, he just come to the end and he had to shift gears, and then when he popped the clutch, he popped me off under.
He threw Jim off of the
Pulled that
platform.
dust off the top. of
It
me.
was a tandem disc, and I remember Dad was moving awful fast. He threw Jim in the pickup, and both of us got in and got out to open the gate, Joe did, and he was in such a hurry, he just went on. But,
Joe ran the rest of the way to the house.
yeah, it was.
But we had a new car. We had a Ford.
Yeah, the what?
It had run 100 miles an hour going down all.
Most of the dad's cars would run pretty good.
Yeah.
And Jim gave him the best tryouts.
Well, I tried it. Joe and I tried them out too. But yeah,
Joe Boston so
the disc run through Jim's mouth and cut some teeth out, run across the top of his head, and sew his head up.
Yep. And you know
I
it's
had a lot of clothes on. Didn't hurt my body.
Yeah,
lots
it was
of
cold. and-
heavy winter
Older
clothes. And so I remember Mom talking about it. I think it was maybe right before that winter, right before I was born, or right after.
No, you was a baby.
No, yeah.
Was
Because,
I a baby?
because when we went to the town, I left you with Joe.
Oh,
Yeah, you was
Yeah.
old enough, Joe.
Yeah,
You was
and
probably a
I
year
stayed-
old. Yeah,
I stayed
I
too.
read it in my baby book.
yeah. And that
all
was one
there.
thing Mom was good about. She kept baby books on all of it.
Yeah.
Detailed stuff.
So with your cows and stuff, what sale barn did you guys go to with those?
Whirling
Whirling.
sale barn.
Okay.
Whirling was a good market then.
Same
When
one
I
is
first
still
started
there.
hauling cows, there was
I'm sure.
Or let's see, there was Grable, Whirling, Riverton.
Troy, do you think they've updated that sale barn since then?
Oh, yeah.
Same damn thing. Yeah. Same one.
If that kind of gives you an idea how it
another
was
piece of belly wood.
Yeah.
when we
Add
were
another piece of belly wood.
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
Joe
scrunch in there,
first
hunched over.
in 37, he was 2.5 years older than I was, and then I'm 2.5 years older than Jim was. And then, shit, they waited 6 years to have
Years.
Viva, and another 3 years for Vicky. But,
Perfection takes time.
Wow.
And then they quit.
and I don't know.
Right,
I
me
know
too.
a
Me
lot
too,
of
buddy.
the
Right.
younger generation didn't
Shut
have
up,
any
old
idea
one.
what went on. Up in them
First is
days,
not best.
you know.
They usually quit
No, but I
We had it
remember
pretty damn good compared to the kids ahead of us.
Yeah.
You know, I think it took until we reached adulthood to realize how damn good we actually had. When you look back on, like you said, like some of our neighbors and stuff, and what they were scraping by on and doing, and you know, how they were living. We did live in a little bitty old log cabin, and like I said, we never lacked for a lot of things. Us girls wore a lot of hand-me-down clothes thanks to Aunt Blanche Troyer. She could resew all of Jody's clothes and stuff for us. And we did have a lot of that kind of stuff, but you know, as far as I never realized that, and we were right across the road from the school.
Yeah,
we walked
we
to
just had a couple of hundred, about 100 yards to walk over.
we walked to school. We could walk home for lunch every day.
Was it uphill both ways though?
It was. And it was easier than most times.
Snow 10 months out of the year.
Didn't learn anything. We went
Yeah, we trudged through that belly-deep snow for miles.
But we had still kids that still rode horseback to school.
Another thing, I went through 8th grade there, and when I graduated, I was the salutatorian, or valedictorian, whatever they had it. But all my grade schools, I was the only one in my class.
In your grade.
Oh, that's good.
I'll tell you when I went to
Voting. Castle for voting.
I guess that's obvious.
You know, being the only student in that grade, it was easy, you know. Shit, I never knew what homework was. I never knew what taking a note was. Boy, I paid for it when I got to high school. My A's that I got all the time through MR school went to D's and E's. I was one lost puppy all day.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
of difference.
I
didn't
only
know.
went there through
We was really
fifth-
pretty damn
fifth
backwards
grade,
when I
and then
Yeah.
and then we consolidated with Hamilton Dove.
Yeah.
But I went there. We didn't have kindergarten, so I went there first through fifth grade. Luckily, I had a few pretty good teachers. I had one or two especially good.
Did
And,
you go to the dome?
Then we went to fifth grade in Hamilton Dome before we moved to Hidden Valley. So Vicky would have. Oh, you only went there through second grade.
I understand that.
Well, I went first grade in
Yeah, she was first grade there.
Only first grade?
I was in first grade.
Yeah, I thought you went there in second grade too.
No, then she graduated.
Yeah, yeah. Most kids that was ever in that school when I was there was kids.
Anybody got any questions you want to know about the old days?
Do you have any memories of Nebraska? I know
lucky
that
to have
Joe
him
was
as
born
long
in
as we did.
Nebraska. I do love
Nebraska.
We're all pretty
genealogy.
damn temporary. And,
Yeah.
I just, he surprised us. I thought he was good for a few more years, but we don't know these things.
Yeah, it was a hell of a surprise to everybody.
And
But,
he was, I had a lot of respect. He had a lot of things he thought about things that I didn't think about, Bob didn't think about. That
yeah.
He could rattle off shit about the desert plants after they got to going down
Yeah, and birds. and
Arizona and he was pretty damn, hey babe, he was pretty damn smart that way.
stuff. Oh, Carrie
She's my
asked,
buddy if I got a bowl of Jello.
Carrie asked about whether, before we moved up Owl Creek, when we lived 10 miles north of Seneca, Nebraska, my granddad had a ranch there, and it was one of them deals, you know, where the son was helping the dad, and things wasn't going so smooth, especially with our mom. But I remember Pa Daniels was a mean old bastard. He was. To us little kids, and I remember him taking the lines from the work team and whipping Joe when Joe was.
Joe used to tell that he
Yeah,
was 6 years
I
old.
can barely
And
remember.
Bob whipped him with
But,
the reins
but
going.
he done that so much that our mom told Dad, she says, I'm leaving. You can stay here or whatever, but she says, I can't take any more of Pa of beating these kids up and not letting you be any part of running the ranch or anything. So they just, you know, it's pretty fuzzy, but they up and moved, and we lived in Sheridan, Wyoming. Oh, from I think about the 1st of November till the 1st of March. We lived in a
Yeah, Dad worked on the
cabin
railroad
camp. You
for
know,
a
it wasn't
while.
it wasn't a motel; it was a cabin camp. But
So that would have been what year?
that was
41.
45, the fall of 45, and the spring of
Yeah.
46. And they found that place and bought it up there. And I never did know for sure, but I think Pa Daniel helped Dad finance
He
that.
financed it, I know.
And then
I seen,
Pa-
I seen a, how did I see it? Yeah, a $13,000 or something that
Yeah, it-
was a note.
13,000 is what
Yeah,
they
there
paid
was
for that
something
place.
and Claude signed the damn note or
But I,
don't know.
here's
After
what
that,
I
I think I've got
remember
it
from my
someplace.
teenage years is Pa, in order to keep Dad under his thumb, would never let him pay the principal off. Dad,
Yeah.
our dad had to pay interest to Pa
But-
all the years that Pa
But
lived.
you know, when Dad sold them oil rights off, you know, they drilled an oil well on us, and
Yeah.
at that time, the original landowner had 12.5% of the mineral rights, any mineral. And when we bought the place, well, that owner kept half of it, so we had 6.25%. And in about 1951 or 2, they drilled a well on the place there, and it was looking very much like it was going to be a hell of a good oil well. So some of these speculators come in and they offered Dad pretty good money for 2% of his share of that, and I think he sold how much?
I don't know. Can't tell you.
$2,500 a share, $5,000. And he got that money and he paid that place off then. He quit Pa bleeding him.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
he paid it off when they got
when
there.
they got that little bit out
And
of
then
that.
well, we'll still sit captive there. Maybe some of the great grandkids.
Maybe.
Now,
They-
really, they screwed the whole up. It was they started out with a little, these are Mickey Mouse investors. They hired a little cable tool, go in, start this all, put the surface in. And then they moved a little bigger cable tool in. And he went down, I don't know, another 1,000 foot or something. And then for a little while, they moved the rotary
Yeah.
rig in. And whoever was running the rotary got the holes so goddamn crooked that they couldn't get it. They run. And as far as it ever being paying oil well, maybe no.
You
But
know,
it was a screwed up hole.
I was
And
down.
the last guy, I don't know, that old boy had that one cable tool, and he moved back in, and the hole was so crooked, he stuck his cable tool bit in it, and had a hell of a time. Once he got it back, he got the hell out of there. And,
He's not gonna mess with it.
yeah, there was some of them guys that
But they-
invested in it. They just, well, they was
But
gambling.
as
They was
I
gambling.
recall,
But
there
the-
was even an article on the front page
Yeah,
of the
they was-
Thermopolis paper
I
about
went
it,
down
that
there
there was
with-
a
with-
wildcat well
Dad,
on Alfred.
with Dad
But
and
they
one of
was
the
drilling them
speculators.
wildcat wells all over hell up
We
there all
run
the time.
we run a cup on a string down in there and pulled that up, and it was 1/3 water and 2/3 full of oil. They was damn sure of paying oil well there if they ever.
Yeah, but they screwed it up.
Yeah, they cored it once. And they had a bleeding core with a diamond bit that
Bob,
took a 3-4 inch core out. But it, somebody along the line screwed the hole up.
Bob, do you have any?
Anymore, the way they
Jim's still
drill,
talking.
produce oil anymore, it's worthless.
Do you have any recollection of when you lived out by Newcastle?
I can't hear.
Do
what
you
she said.
remember when you lived out by Newcastle?
I don't remember
and
that
my
far
folks-
back. No.
My folks lived about a half a mile from your folks.
Yeah.
And anyhow, my brother and sister were older than they, and Jim and I hadn't been born yet.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, my dad always loved the kids, and so Bob was wanting to come to Aunt Viva's always, and Uncle Albert had cut his hair. So one day his dad said, "Damn it, you like it so well up there, pack your suitcase and move up there." Bob went in, packed his suitcase, and came out, and he said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to Uncle Albert's," he said. This is in my mom's diary.
Oh.
that I have.
See, Joe lived out there with Mom and Dad, but see, they lived at the Pa Daniels Ranch when I was born, because I was born in Mullen, Nebraska, And Joe had been born earlier than that in Arnold, Nebraska. And then Jim was in Arnold. But our mom lived, her folks was in Arnold, and that's why they went there.
But in between there, for a couple of years, you were over at Hutt's Ranch.
It could be, yeah.
According to my mom's diary, they were there too. Your dad run livestock on shares. My dad, or cows. My dad ran sheep on Hutt's Ranch.
Yeah,
And
I
you
know
only
they-
lived about, and in this diary, and I should have brought it, 'cause it told about your mom and my mom when they moved there, washing the walls down with a broom and lye to kill the bed bugs before they could move in, and burning the mattresses. And then my folks went from there to the ranch, and your folks went back to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I was born after my folks went to the ranch, and Jim was, but you two are in this diary of where, and Joe, and then Joe always, when he was going to Casper College, he'd come down on weekends a lot, because Dad had paid to help him do something on the ranch. So Joe'd come, instead of coming to Thermopolis, why he'd go out to the ranch and work for my folks.
I remember
And
Joe and I
thank you,
going to your folks' place. Joe had an old Jeep. And what year was that?
The Jeep?
The Jeep.
53.
Yeah. Anyway, Joe and I was going down to Aunt Viva and Uncle Albert, Judy's folks, at Lance Creek. And Joe had just barely got his driver's license. And we were driving that damned old Jeep.
And now he was about 18 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he bought the Jeep after a few years after.
Well, anyway, we was,
Making a few bucks on his own.
oh, maybe so, but we was going down the road between Shoshone and Casper, and a car passed him, and it scared him, and he brought that old Jeep over, and he went back here, and we went like that, and Jesus, it scared him out of me. We got down to Viva and Albert's, and Aunt Viva and Uncle Albert, and your dad had a couple old cancer-eyed cows, needed to go to the sales barn. He had that old 2-horse homemade horse trailer. We loaded them old cows up, and your dad had a Jeep too, and pulled that into the sales barn, and Judy's dad had a drinking problem too. We got in there, and Uncle AJ got in the bar, and shit, we couldn't get him out of there, Joe and I, and we went in towards supper time, and he gave us $1 a piece to go down to the buffet and get us something to eat. We went back, and it was past midnight when we got him out of there. Then Joe ended up driving the Jeep, pulling the empty trailer home. I remember next morning around there, it was a 10th son of a bitch with that Aunt Viva there. Uncle Albert, he was pretty quiet, but he liked a good party.
And he'd go for a long time, not to take a drink.
Yeah, he was a binge.
But when he
Yeah.
twisted off, why it was a major operation.
Anybody got any questions you want to know about the old days? Or that I just wondered, the younger generation, like you guys, never knew what we did back 70 years ago. You know, it's hell to get old, but you know, some of the memories.
Alternative ain't worth a damn. Ask our brother.
Yeah,
My mom was the oldest of
Nothing
6
we can do
kids.
about it.
I
But
can't hear you.
if there's something you guys, if we help you a little bit,
My mom was the oldest
Yeah,
of
your
those
mom
6
was
kids, and
older
your mom
than
was the
us.
youngest
Same age
of
as
those
our
6
dad.
kids.
Yeah, and our mom was the youngest.
Yeah,
That's what I said. There was 13 years between them.
Yeah.
there was 9 and sometimes 10 years difference between mom and dad. Dad was
Yeah.
9 to 10 years older
Oh, I
than
didn't know it
Mom.
was that big of an age.
It wasn't that 7 and 8, wasn't it?
No,
19.
Mom,
Oh,
but
04.
no, Dad was born in 1904 and Mom was born in 1913.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they were, but that, yeah.
And then Shirley sitting here, her mom was the other sister. There was 3 girls and 3 boys. So Shirley's mom, my mom, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
you for
thank you.
doing this.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that came here.
It's not boring.
Time.
Not boring.
Hey,
Well, we get it.
if you didn't get enough to eat, it ain't my fault.
The only thing I want to kind of
We
reiterate,
had lots of good cooks.
Thank Jim and Dolly for all this gathering.
the only thing I want to reiterate in all this is that as being young, history didn't mean crap as youngsters, even in grade school. But now as you get older, history becomes more important.
Yeah, it sure
And
does.
the more
It
people
really
you
does.
lose, the more.
And right now, you got the people here who have
Right.
somewhat answers to the questions that you won't be able to answer, they will not be able to answer later. So you gotta remember, time continues stops for no one. But wisdom of the elders will continue on.
But it's really important to understand the people who raised you, what they went through as children, and what their parents went
That's what
through
I'm
as
saying.
children. And
The
that's the
wisdom of the
only way
elders
you can
will
understand.
continue on.
You've got to understand the
and I-
continuity of the story, you know.
So I
It's,
wanted
yeah,
you guys
it's
to
super
grab this
interesting.
group.
Super
because-
interesting.
She is 7 generations to live on Alfred.
Seven generations, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's a long
guys.
time, you know. That's a lot of generations.
She's clapping.
You know, when we moved here,
Their parents were the first.
there was the only Daniels was Forrest Daniels and 3 Daniels boys. Marie Daniels, his wife. And look at how it got infected with Daniels.
The whole virus of Daniel.
Most of that virus was pretty good.
Yeah.
He really was amazing,
Yeah.
We're very thankful for everybody that gathered around, and we, nobody hates anybody. May not like you, but I don't hate you.
But we'll eat together regardless.
We'll all eat the same
We
food.
do.
I can tell you a story
We're
many
very
days in my
fortunate
voice.
to have
Laura and I used to
this
say,
group.
when Justin and Jared would get fighting, Laura and I used to say, damn it, you got Daniel's blood in you, you know how to get along with everybody. That's one good thing about this family is we may get cross once in a while with somebody, but we always make up. And this family has stayed functional for a long, long
You're
time.
right of that.
Yeah.
That's
So many,
powerful.
so many families, when there's 5 kids in the generation, they get to be this old. There's a lot of them that don't talk
They're
to their
splintered
brother or
off
their
and
sister
they're
because
Fractured.
they're a son of a
Fractured
biscuit.
families.
And I don't care about them. And for
No?
after Barb and I got our place in Arizona, well, every other winter, we would have a family reunion with just us 5, and at that time, well, they all had spouses and everything, and everybody. This was started in 2011, I think. We bought there in 10.
Yeah.
And everybody was still young enough to travel, and what do we have, 4 or 5 of them before
Before, yeah, and then we missed, Joe and Pat missed the first
Yeah, and
one.
then they got to where
Yeah, we did,
where people got old and
yeah.
Jim and Dolly didn't want to drive through the blizzard. I never figured that out. But anyway, we haven't had one for
Yeah,
2 or 3 years.
a full one, but
I always thought it
yeah,
was-
those were probably the best gatherings in our later years.
Yeah,
we had a
we've
good
ever
time.
had.
for just the immediate family.
It was worth doing. All right, so one thing that my father was the keeper of was the family Bible. There's records in this Bible back to the early 1800s with names in this Bible. The way that this Bible is passed down is it skips a generation, and then it goes to the firstborn boy of the next generation. So at this point in time, Steph becomes the keeper of the family Bible.
Oh, wow.
It's a very fragile document. There's also a lot of other family history in there. The bill of sale you were looking for the place is in there.
What?
The bill of sale that you were talking about is in here in this book with the Bible. So there's a lot of history in here.
You're gonna,
If you guys
if
would
you
like to
read
look at
Family
it,
Bible, we won't
we'd
slap
be-
it out of your hands.
I tell you, tomorrow we'll put it down at the FNW. We have a gathering there. It'll be on the table there, and if people carefully walk through it, it's pretty fragile, I know. If you want to look in it, no problem. Just treat it with respect. There's a lot of our family history in there.
Yeah.
So
We
you
sure
are the keeper
appreciate
of
y'all
it.
coming to support Brother Joe.
Well, thanks for the history lesson. It's been good.
Patsy, you did a good job putting up with him.
Boiled
all
down,
those
it was
years.
the oldest son of the oldest son. Which is our dad, he was an only son.
Yeah.
And then Joe
Joe
was the oldest son.
son, and Wade was the oldest son.
Yeah. I don't know how it worked. I was told by him it skipped a generation, so I don't know exactly. It might say inside there. But I know you are the keeper.
We'll follow the instructions. And when I come back in 50 years, I want to read that, you know.
You're welcome.
Don't, Cardi got mosquito bites, don't tickle me.